welcome to Outside the Box tonight. Yours truly, Creative Gaia, with co-host tonight, Tony Z, and we have a couple of guests tonight. First hour, we have Karen Quinn Tostado, and for the second hour, we have Elliot Bernstein. So we're in for a hell of a night tonight, guys. So hold on to your seatbelts, or put your seatbelts on and hold on to your seats, because we're going to go for a hell of a ride. Tony, Karen, how are you guys doing?
Not too bad, Kate. Yourself?
Oh, good. Yeah, doing what I do best, talk.
How about you, Karen?
I'm here right now. I was just letting my wonderful husband know as he was coming in that it was 7 p.m. Eastern, not Pacific, and I was live.
What a bozo! All good.
As if it's not hectic enough, you've got to make it more hectic, look.
Standard operating procedure.
I'm busy, though, because the marathon is this Saturday, and there are always lots of ends to tie up beforehand. We've got the updated website, and just actually getting people to understand the concept of unity, of freedom, of personal accountability, and of morality is a challenge.
Yeah, it's actually something that nothing in the legal system or the government or military or whatever, they don't even understand that. So I guess it's our turn to educate them, huh?
I think it's our turn to educate ourselves and definitely then each other. And once we truly know within ourselves that we're dealing with someone who's out of integrity, to remove all support from them. I don't think we have to get so caught up in the infighting. And I'll tell you, that is, while I'm getting this marathon together, I'm aware that certain guest stars are rather controversial. And I've had others say, well, I'm not going to be involved if this person is going to be involved. And I started thinking about that. And so as I'm learning, which I'm always learning, and I don't claim to have all the answers or even all the questions, but I'm learning to try and get my own anger and ego under well enough check to where I can ask tough questions without trying to talk behind someone's back or accuse them just because egos are involved when there's not really any real information. So I'm formulating questions for certain guests who have proven to be a bit controversial, and I'm also working on an article to try and really help us to get to that heart-centered thinking, because time is of the essence. And the more that I learn about what's going on around us, the more I do understand why it's so difficult for us to unite. I mean, we've been lied to our entire lives. Our entire recorded history is lies. And I know that both of you fully are aware of that.
Oh, yeah. And actually, what you're bringing to the table is exactly what we're doing as well. And again, not everyone that comes on the shows do I necessarily agree with on all of their points. Definitely many, and that's great. You see, the point is, though, is what's the intention behind it? And this is what we focus on. I don't care if someone doesn't like me or whatever. That's their issue. But the fact is, if I know they're moving in the same intention to correct this system, to find that beautiful center point, enough of the divide and conquer, and I flow all the energy I can, whether I agree with them or not. It's the destination I'm focused on. And when you get the destination focus, there is no more divide and conquer,
That's perfect. That is so perfect, because last year at this time I was trying to get us to think about the option of a peace train, meaning that you don't have to sit in the same car with somebody you have an issue with, but lay down your arms and your attitude at the door so you can step into your own car and allow that another box with more individuals also who've been lied to. None of us have, I think, the right to claim that we know the truth when it's changing so often, when new evidence that arises all points to corruption. But we need to really understand that many of us have been so compartmentalized that we don't even have a clue that we're working on the wrong side. Or if we do, they need to be hammered a little bit to come either over to the right side or enough to where publicly people understand that they can make their own decisions, and when we are fully working more on our own integrity, more on not reacting, but becoming that change we want to be, then when we find out that we're dealing with someone who's out of alignment, we simply remove our support. And what I would also encourage is that we, as we do that, if we've tried in a venue, in a public venue, which, I'm going to be asking some tough questions this Saturday from some of our guests, but not with the intention of causing animosity as much as realizing that we've got far greater numbers. We need to unite in spite of our differences. And so, agreed upon that point, here's an issue that we'd need some clarification on from you. And, and I have a temper. I've got an Irish temper. It's gotten me in a lot of trouble throughout my life.
Karen, I was born in Belfast. I know what you're talking about. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not always easy, but I'm trying to learn to simply allow that I'm going to make mistakes while being, as Anne Rosen puts it, a student of my own unfolding. So I'm going to make mistakes, but I can also rectify those mistakes by admitting them and moving forward. And so the real goal here with United We Strike is to understand how we outnumber the criminals in power who have stolen and turned us all into debt slaves. And it's time to understand also that the United States, as well as all the other countries in the world, are corporations. The only way corporations work is if the employees show up to do the dirty work. We are the employees, whether or not you believe it, whether or not you think you're affected by it, whether or not you realize that at least half of your money is going to pay for bombs and things that are totally out of morality, it nonetheless is true. Look it up for yourself. Check into the capital letters on your license. It's a whole other ballgame. Or else just think logically and with your heart. When we stop allowing the corruption within our hearts and our minds to stop us from being moral, when we decide to find that moral compass, then it's a process of sharing what we know and understanding that we do have a right to be free. And that doesn't mean that we're subjected, instead of being free, to paying taxes and fines all of our life and to submitting to religious or political authorities. It means that if you own your property, you own your property. It means that we get back to common sense and common law. Do no harm. If no harm is done and there is no victim, there is no crime and no need for this legal economic conquest that we find ourselves subjected to.
Again, it's all about legislation, isn't it? It's all about taking your freedoms away until you've got you into such a position where it's all, you get fined for this and fined for that. So we need to roll back all of these laws and go and roll it back to where you're actually coming from there, Karen. We've got ourselves in the right mess by following instructions and not double checking to make sure they're good ones. So, yeah.
That's it. And, in updating our website, too, I had to really toss around the idea of the mission statement, because while I am the founder of this movement, it kind of just evolved as I began to be compelled to speak out. Silence is compliance. If you know something is wrong and you have not the courage to talk about it and to try and bring it up and expose it, you are part of the problem. And I couldn't help myself. And now as I begin my 5th year, I was naive when I started. I thought that people would be just as outraged as I am. But we're too busy throwing stones at each other. We've got too much self-vested interest. We're too busy thinking about that paycheck that we're going to get, or the new toy we're going to buy, or the bonus we're going to make. And we continue to have jobs at Halliburton, the IRS, Monsanto, DuPont, Raytheon, and ad nauseum, to the detriment of our world, of our children's future, of our future. And we are overlooking some of the worst crimes imaginable perpetrated upon the people by their own governments. This Friday, I have a weekly show on as part of Charlie McGrath's Wide Awake News. It's called Karen's Corner. And Tony, you've guested on there before. And this Friday, I have so many things bouncing through my head this week in my heart. I watched a movie called Oranges and Sunshine. Are either one of you familiar with it?
Not personally.
No, I haven't. That's a new one on me.
Okay. Have you heard about the child migrants or the lost children of the empire?
Nope.
No, vaguely familiar, but no, not specifically.
Well, it is an absolutely horrendous, unconscionable crime perpetrated upon children and their families. And when I started thinking about the bigger picture, and this is what I'm going to focus on Friday, and hopefully I'll get some calls from people who have some direct experience with this. But during the late 1800s, early 1900s, thousands of children, over 130,000 children, which is just what we're allowed to know, were called children migrants, and in collusion with the governments, with charities, with orphanages, with the Catholic Church, they shipped these children, who were anywhere from the ages of 3 to about 9 years old, out of Britain and over to Australia, Rhodesia, New Zealand, Canada. And there are pictures of this on a website called childmigrantstrust.com. And it is so absolutely horrific. These children, many of whom were taken by social workers, which is a whole other ballgame. No one should have the right to steal your children. No one other than God. Now, in the true extreme of an abusive parent, there needs to be definite action taken. But we need to look at these cases on an individual basis and not make a wide sweeping statement with a lot of rules and regulations that crucify innocent people and steal children. And unfortunately, the United States, along with drug running and gun running, is heavily into prostitution, pedophilia, and horrors of the most unimaginable kind. And this is one of them, but this was from Britain at the time, but we still take our marching orders from Britain anyway. People just don't like to admit that. But these children, these migrant children, they had the audacity to name them migrant children. They were virtually kidnapped, and then they were shuffled off to hard labor. There is a Catholic school called Bindoon, Bindoon, in Australia. And if you look up some of the horror stories there, while I won't get into all of it, it involves pedophilia. It involves the Catholic Church, folks. It's time to understand and really understand that when you go to church on Sunday, a Catholic or Christian church, and you give money to these pedophiles who simply move around the pedophiles that they know within their organizations, who do everything they can to ditch being accountable, you are supporting them. When you know the truth, if you do nothing, you no longer are in morality, especially at a time when our world is so dark. And so we need to look deeply into this, and I'm going to do a lot more research on that. I'm going to talk about that again on Friday night. That's tomorrow night. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's on wideawakenews.com. But what I'm really interested in also very much is the marathon, because, folks, until we're willing to look in the mirror ourselves and take accountability for our lives, we're not going to be able to help. And until we love ourselves enough to forgive ourselves for being so badly taken, because when you really dig deeply, we're taken on every level imaginable and some we can't even fathom, we're not going to be able to move ahead. And until we can protect our children, we're also not going to be able to move ahead. And gentlemen, I had a kind of a mental picture come into my head. And you know how when you throw a pebble into a still pond, how it reverberates outwards? To me, this plan is so heinous and so long in this multi-generational coup. This intelligence, or this lack of intelligence and compassion behind all of this, knew that the way to really control people is to get to them through their families. Now think of the ramification of a pool, a seamless pool, being all the families in the world. When you rip a child from that family, it's like putting a pebble in that pond. And now all of a sudden, over 130,000 just that they'll admit to. Think about how many pebbles go into that pond. Think about for every child who has been abducted this way. One of them who did not even meet his relatives until he was 60 years old because they changed the children's names as they enslaved them and then took their sexual pleasure when they wanted. They beat these children at Bindun. They made them put up the Stations of the Cross, the rocks. Folks, you need to know about this because the government still are they're forming committees of more members like themselves to figure out what to do instead of going, wait just a minute here. These children, these families need to be repaired because, again, like that pebble, for every one child that's taken out, every member of their family on both sides of the family is affected. Everyone is affected. Everyone is fearful. And generation after generation of abductions and pedophile and rules. When you look at how we stole the Africans, because white people needed to have slaves to help, build up America. When you look at the ruthlessness behind the human trafficking, look at governments, folks. Look at governments. And then look at yourself in the mirror and look at your children. Are they healthy? Or are they vaccinated, which is another government plot to sicken your children and get them to obey and be mindless and be on the dole and be sick? Look at what's falling from the sky. It's time to wake up, folks. It's time to step back. And I suppose it's time for me to take a breath. Sorry, guys.
Oh, no, hey, hon, that's okay. That's exactly why we... smoke alarm just went off. Just one sec. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's time to take stock of what's been going on, and that's exactly where we're coming from, This is the point, We need to get people to sort of sit up and pay attention. It's as simple as that, really. And,
It brings me back then to the revised mission statement at United We Strive. Our goal, my personal goal, and those of us who really take this to heart understand that I am not speaking now as a leader of this huge group. I'm speaking as an individual who is encouraging others to use this forum as an umbrella movement. We don't take donations on the site. We are happy to steer folks to other places to get donations, and I'll tell you, it's not because I couldn't use a few pesos, for doing this for free. However, the cost is minimal, and my husband and I are willing to sacrifice that in order to keep it commercial-free and to keep the message pure. So it's not about standing behind me. It's not about agreeing with everything I say. What it is about is understanding we outnumber them, and we need our numbers, and we need them now, and we need to quickly find our moral compass so that we can stand shoulder to shoulder and say, yes, I agree to make this a People's Day. I agree to take action on this day because I've realized how important it is. So our goal is to inspire unity and peaceful noncompliance, using our far greater numbers to resist tyranny by refusing immoral orders, in order to create a world of independent individuals, fully capable of making their own decisions and living lives of peace, prosperity, and abundance. And that's really it. Because I guess I should ask, what do you think of that?
Well, absolutely. This is the point. The reality is we would have lives of peace and abundance and unbelievable, just absolutely unbelievable abilities incredible lifespans, incredible health, incredible everything. There wouldn't be any shortages, and no disease, no famine, no hunger, no want, no destruction, no violence. No, it could be absolutely awesome. But we've got to stop and take back our true birthrights first, and that's the point. And that's what we're trying to clarify the direction and trying to bring people back to that. I mean, it goes without saying.
Well, and that's why, at least in order to unite people, we encourage them to take one day a month, the 15th, to take some kind of action in terms of peaceful resistance and self-sufficiency and preparedness, because we deserve it. We are all. I mean, there are so many reasons to step back. Say, well, why would I stay home? Well, how about, your children are being poisoned, your mind is being poisoned, your planet is being poisoned, your seas are being poisoned, your food is being poisoned, and you're enslaved. Is that good enough? But it doesn't seem to work well. People still are having a hard time understanding. So that's why I feel that starting to concentrate again on each one of us individually and on what we allow to have done to our children. How can you really say that you belong to a civilization or even a political party that's worth respecting when you look at the world and you look at the fact that governments are the ones who have our money through stealing and taxes and the rest of the subversions. They steal our money to create armies, and they spend the rest of our money coming up with horrific ways to obliterate one another, as opposed to coming up with wonderful ways to build new homes. Sorry, my phone's there. Let me put this on mute, and I'll turn it off.
No problem, we got it. Anyway, yeah, it's exactly what Karen's talking about is exactly what we've been talking about for a very long time as well. We're all on the same page here, and every penny of support that you give the banks and the governments and everything else is a penny.
Okay, you've disappeared there, Kate, so just for argument's sake...
Okay, sorry, I'm here. Wow, I unmuted it. Must have muted itself. Weird. Anyway, what I was saying there was, every penny that people give to the system makes them accountable. And I'm talking about putting money in the banks. I'm talking about, taking loans out, which are not loans. They're paid in fulls. And by reverse deception, they make you think that, under corporate contract that somehow you owe a debt, that they're just going to hypothecate your signature again and again anyway, creating tens of millions of dollars in every mortgage. It's as simple as, withdrawing your consent. Everything that you do within the system is part of the system, and that's your share of what happens to other people around the world. And there is accountability there. Simply the reason why Tony, myself, and many others have completely stepped out of the system. I got to tell you, it's not an easy way to live at all. We know that firsthand, and we get by. By the skin of our teeth, we get by. But we get by, and literally every night we're doing what we feel we need to do in order to get this word out, to educate and to inform people of what's really going on. From that point on, though, there's nothing more that I can do to motivate, anyone else. I know my experience, Tony knows his, Karen knows her. We all know our experiences. The bottom line, though, is, if you're not going to change things, then who will? Again, that's where the whole fake savior mentality comes into play with people, and that's been a main control factor for millennia. They call it religion, and of course, what Karen was talking about there, with regards to the children trafficking. I mean, this is very old news. For those that know me, I've had many interviews with Kevin Annett and the work that he's doing up here in Canada and worldwide, bringing the Catholic Church to bear, and the Canadian government, and different government officials and, of course, I hate saying law enforcement. Let's just call it what it is: statute enforcement for the corporate policy officers. And these are the things that we have to, take steps towards. And every step you take towards pulling that plug is a step forward, guys. I mean, you don't have to do what Tony and I did in terms of completely vacating the system to the point of destitution. But what we're trying to show is that it can be done, and we're just waiting for everyone else.
Well, it's difficult. Now, my husband and I have downsized drastically. We live in a 38 by 8 foot RV, but it's pretty well all self-contained. So having a bit of electrical problems this week, but we've got the generator, we've got tanks. Our wheel estate can pick up and go, and while it might be small, it's comfortable, and it's ours. It's ours, and it's not subject to somebody coming up and, actually it is. They can come up any time because of what we've allowed to happen and say, sorry, you've been accused of speaking out against the government, which I only do. I no longer believe in governments. I don't think anyone other than myself would be any better at making the decisions that I need to make concerning my personal life, because I can tell you this: I might not always be right, but if I am wrong, when I am wrong, which is more often than I'd like, I'll cop to it. Is it comfortable? No. But is it learning? Yes. And some of my best lessons are from mistakes. But to get back to unity and the pedophilia, I'm familiar with pedophilia, and now my heart is telling me to say something here. Because when I spoke earlier of unity and of actually being able to ask people questions who are controversial and give them the opportunity to answer for themselves, I've spoken with Kevin Annett numerous times, and I've supported him. And I was then approached by some Native people who have been harmed by him. And when I asked Kevin a few questions, instead of answering questions, he accused me of being mind-controlled and that this was an old tactic. And he never answered the question as to whether or not Jeremiah was an alias. He did not answer the question as to whether or not there were actually even elders who were backing him, because I know that when I had him on the line, I had him on my program, we had Chief Gerald Whitehorse Standing call in, and he basically attacked him. And so I was trying to protect and figure out, okay, now wait a minute, let's see what's happening here. And when I did some research later, I went back to Kevin and said, okay, I've got some questions here. Now, I'm not saying Kevin is a bad person. I want to be very clear on that. What I am saying is that myself personally, I did not receive answers that comforted me. I received answers that made me more suspicious. I have, now this is third party, but in listening to a program on OYN, people can go to it as well. They broadcast on Sundays on United We Strike, and actually maybe, guys, we can start doing a simulcast with some of your programming as well. But there are Native peoples who gave testimony and they told their stories, and they did not give permission to have those stories publicly used in a book, nor did they give permission to be. They did not give their permission, and they're also finding out that there are some huge, seemingly exaggerations. So now, I don't know where Kevin's coming from. Do I know whether or not Indigenous people have been harmed? Yes, I do. But I would suggest to any who are compelled to help these people, and they definitely need it. If you live in an area where this is happening, look into these Indian schools, look into these rules. You really want to get a good eye over how the American government has treated the Native American Indians, and understand that we're all on the reservation now, as the recently deceased Russell Means has said. But if you want to support these children, I would suggest you contact the elders of the different tribes to ask if you can be assistance that way, because there's also a deep-rooted mistrust of the white man, and it's hard to blame them. And so there's also a white man getting traction where the victims had no traction is also, I believe, a bit of a sore spot. Now, I could be mistaken there, and I'm happy to admit that ahead of time. However, if you are going to support Kevin Annett, I would encourage you to contact him directly so you can satisfy yourself. And if you are satisfied, then continue. If you're not satisfied and you want to help these children, contact some of the programs that are set up to do just that.
Yeah, and just to back that up as well, Karen, I've known Kevin for many years now. Had him on many shows, and actually met him down at the Mohawk Reservation. One of the things that I did note that was very prevalent at some of the elder meetings was the incredible amount of fear that was absolutely engulfing these people. And again, this is all part of the white man illusion, the white man trap. And yeah, it's very difficult to one, gain trust based on the mistrust for so long. And for me, it was extremely frustrating, trying to help in certain ways. I will say that of all the ones that I met, all the natives that I did meet, there was maybe 2 or 3 that were willing to stand. And I did see a lot of, when dealing with band council and hereditary, a lot of infighting going on there. And I know Kevin was frustrated many times, as well as a couple of other people down there that were working with him. Like when he had the ground penetrating radar unit that was given to the Mohawk for the Mohawk. What do you call them?
Nation.
Yeah, the school there, the residential school there. I was at the building, and as soon as they started finding things, it was the band council that was it was $250 a day, I think, for the rental of this unit. As soon as they started finding things, the band council pulled the plug on it. So what we're dealing with here is a lot of. I know Kevin's been very frustrated and has, as a result, become extremely defensive in many ways, and his own safety is at stake. Doing what he does and the level of game that he's playing, and I know a lot of people around him have definitely been harmed, and I'm not going to say he's like how would you put it, like some avenger or whatever. No, but the things that Kevin experienced right out of the get-go, and I don't know if you know much about his background as far as what they did to his first family, and pay off.
I had him on extensively. I actually considered him to be a friend. So I was very surprised when at his response. So again, I'm not castigating him because I'm also really, really working on just showing up every day, doing the best I can, and not judging anybody else because I'm to a point, but as long as when I go to sleep at night, I know I did the best I could in spite of the mistakes I made. I know what my intention is. I don't know what Kevin's intention is. I wish him the best. If he's deluded, I wish him the best. If he's not deluded, I still wish him the best because that way, to me, the best that happens to him will be exactly what he needs for his journey here. And since, I believe very firmly that I'm spirit having a human experience, I just think that ultimately people will be shown by the works they do and by the support they receive. And if he's being supported, then it's working. When we stop being supported, we'll understand that something is out of alignment there. So I definitely, though, think that the bigger picture that we are avoiding is the issue of these children. And here we go again with those pebbles in a pond. When you strip people of their children, when you rip them out of their homes, the ramifications ripple outward. And when you look at the consciousness of the planet today, is it any wonder that we can't get along? So in order to do that and yet still be able to say, wait a minute, I think there's a problem here, it's what I'm learning to try and do, and that's what I've attempted to do here in terms of talking about Kevin, and I hope that it's come across like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, I having talked to him, I don't want to keep on this point. We got Kevin on the show actually on Tuesday coming up. No, one of the things that I noticed over the time was, and just my own feeling having met him and in the flesh and everything, right? His intention is genuine, and what I think the early on frustrations with him was, he literally went to bat for the Native community, and it cost him everything on more ways than one, based on what he was exposed to. And I think one of the things that happened along the way, and it's again based on that tramping down fear and control of the Native population.
Well, there's huge fear, and rightfully so. But let's also look beyond
Karen,
color.
I know that, Karen. I just want to finish the actual point so you get the whole picture of what I'm saying here. So what Kevin has is a very divided focus in that, he may, and I've talked to him a few times, it might have felt that because he stood, again, there's a different paradigms, right? Because he stood, he expected others to stand with him, and a few did. And then, of course, having witnessed it firsthand myself in terms of, elder meetings and talking with certain elders within the Mohawk community and others, there was one, that basic mistrust of the white man. Two, there are a lot of elements within the Native culture that are bought and paid for, to a degree that is sickening. They're more white than we are, And I did see a lot of that going on. So that's not to attack or defend either side. I see the human dynamics that are going on there, and I know many times Kevin has been frustrated trying to get things done and being stonewalled by the very people he's trying to help. And I think that's one of the reasons why he may be a little evasive on things, because a lot of his things that he said have been misconstrued and have been taken completely out of context. So I just think he's being more careful than suspicious, again, having met him and sit down with him and whatnot. So
I'm open to being wrong. I think that
Karen, it's not an issue of being wrong. It's an observational position, right?
Okay.
Because he knows Kevin knows Kevin. You know Karen, I know Kate, and Tony knows Tony. And
that's really it.
That's the mirror that counts, right?
But there are venues, and I guess also there are people who would like him to come to a public forum so that he will answer some of these questions. So he's got options that he can do. But what I'd like to do actually is cut through all the color and everything else just to get to the bigger picture of these are children that we're talking about, and it doesn't just happen to the Native Americans. It happens to all of us.
Everyone.
And while I had been very familiar with, unfortunately more familiar than I'd like to be with pedophilia and the government, when you see these pictures at childmigrantstrust.com of these ships full of these small children being deported and sent off to slavery, it turns your stomach, or at least it turned mine, because this is even more in your face. This is a concerted effort from the late 1800s, some say mid or early 1900s, supposedly all the way up. They were shipping these children out until 1970. And these are white children. And there are also comments from some of the totally ignorant statements of that something about they have to import more white children. At the same time they're decimating the indigenous populations there and the Bushmen. They need more white children. They need more white people there, so that this white supremacist, horrific, ridiculous attitude that somehow our skin color makes us any different than anyone else. But we've got to start protecting the children, regardless of who does it. That has to become the issue. And that's more important than anything else. It's protecting the children, and then folks decide for yourself how to do that and who best to do that through. And then I want to bring it back to just trying to get the idea out of a Patriot Activist Day on the 15th, because whatever we do individually is magnified when we stand united. And we already have people all over the world who pull out their money, they stay home, they use a sick day, they use a vacation day, or they show up to work and they bring their lunch. They don't support the corporations, but the idea really behind this is so much deeper. It is truly about what is important: clean air, clean water, healthy food, self-sufficient communities, and love. We need to love ourselves enough to stop allowing pedophilia, to stop allowing ourselves to be used, and to unite, because on every front, all of those things have been tainted, usurped, and soiled by government intrusion, who are the mafia and the worst gang that we face. And the worst belief we face is, like Larkin Rose says, that belief in authority. That is the worst and the biggest mistake we make, is believing that someone outside of ourselves knows better than we do, and we have to honor that instead of honoring our own better judgment and our own morality.
Oh, here. I mean, that's it. It's about taking self-responsibility and working in a community mindset instead of master-slave mindset. I wrote a quote today. No one is more enslaved than the one who claims to be master over another, and that's exactly what. And it works in the reverse too, right? So anyone that thinks they need a master is equally enslaved. It's where we start taking the responsibility upon ourselves. And yeah, I would recommend people going to that site, and I'll definitely get that link posted for people to get to.
Well, and it's not now. Now, when I look too, there's a picture of Tony Blair on there. See, now it turned Margaret Humphreys, who I would also love to speak to, but I did not want to wait to get this information out there, and I'll put some links in here. I apologize. I kind of checked out of the chat because I was because I got so many things here in front of me. Let me get the child migrants. But Margaret Humphreys, at least as portrayed in this movie, was a social worker. In the opening scene, she is taking a baby from, obviously, a mother who loves this child very much due to whatever circumstances, this poverty, which, as Tony said, does not need to exist. And then she's approached later by a woman who was one of these children, who says, look, I'd like to find out who I am. I was shipped over with a bunch of other children. And Margaret is like, no, that can't happen. And the woman was, wait a minute, are you calling me a liar? And then she presented her with some information, and it was mind-boggling for Margaret and her husband to understand that the size and scope of this operation meant it had to be governmental approved. You don't get these big ships to go from Britain to Australia with all these children, without someone knowing, year after year after year after year. So when she began this and she took it to the authorities, they set up the trust, but she still is dealing with these same kind of horrendous people who are responsible for it. And yes, that is a judgment call, but folks, the ones who we really need to look into their backgrounds are the people we've been trained to call government. Each and every one of them. I know here in the States we have a bunch of treasonous people here with self-vested interest who are representative of the corporation of the United States, and so they're doing their job to make money, but they're not protecting the people.
Oh, agreed. Again, the time is coming where there's going to be more of these children stepping forward. Again, much of the fear has to be overcome in that people have the knowledge and the confidence to come forward, knowing that they're not going to be ridiculed, because that's exactly what system does. It's demeaning. I know from personal experience what this system will do to vilify anyone that is standing up for any sense of truth. And I won't even use the word justice. That word is repugnant to me, because there is no justice in their system. Just ICE maybe, but not justice. Now,
or just us, as Gerald Clemente says, just us, not you, just us.
And that's it. And here's the biggest problem in that, even if you want to come forward into the legal system, that's all part and parcel of the same thing. This is the boys' club of the planet, and it's men and women that are bought and paid for because of their egos, where they're literally selling their souls for a paycheck to have a good life, and to hell with anybody who suffers under them. That's some serious karmic baggage to be having, But again, it's about getting the word out. It's about letting people know that hey, I was a victim of it too, and it's to let people know that no, you're not guilty. There's that's what the system has bred into you. If you were attacked as a child, how is that your fault? Especially, and we're always dealing with people in positions of trust. Ministers, priests, scout leaders, teachers, especially teachers, and the list, and government officials. Again, people get into very naively get into positions, like an intern or whatever, and we can go into stories on interns, but that they want to advance themselves because they're interested in the career, and how many horror stories have you heard there where interns are getting passed around the Congress, shit like that. So I don't pull any punches here, Karen. I think we've talked before. This is about getting the word out, and again, and I do want to really emphasize this point. This is not about vengeance, guys. Like, love thine enemy means love thine no vengeance. You see, when you let universe take care of things, when you really, really let universe take care of things change very quickly. And, all of a sudden, when we stop agreeing with this, collectively, and I'm talking collectively, because if you're not fighting it, you're agreeing with it. There is no gray area here. You're either against or for. And I hate dealing in dualities, but I'm looking for the singularity of love here. And in my universe, there's no room for harming others, especially children.
Agreed. And that's why, again, at United We Strike, I'm just trying to get past my own ego, but to also be able to have enough love for myself and for the world to be able to try and serve, and by exposing some of these problems that are going on and asking us, what would you do? What would you do if you were 3 years old and you were told by someone, if you had been taken from your mother, who's a single mother, because maybe it was 1952 and it was too much of an embarrassment. But what if you were actually told, as some of these children were, that their mother had died, their father had died, and if they went to Australia, which they might as well do, because their parents had died, they'd be able to have sunshine every day, and they'd be able to ride horses to school and pick oranges right off the trees. And instead, they end up sexually abused, stuck on a boat, and subjected to the most, they used to call them the Christian buggers. And, it's unconscionable. So we've got a marathon, the second weekend of every month, where we bring people together from all around the world in order to exchange information, to come together and to have that thread of remember the 15th, no matter what position you are on in terms of activism. There's got to be something that calls you. Is it the fluoride issue? Is it the pedophilia? Is it GMOs? Is it the chemtrails? Is it the war games that are going on? What is it? Is it the health? Is it the vaccines? Stand with us on that day, folks. At least one day a month while we build. And imagine how the world would change if, when you really know what we do here, what all of us know who are in and on this program, if you knew truly the horrific extent of it, you'd understand that if you're prepared with food and water and protection and survival gear, definitely guns to protect yourself and to get food, if you're prepared like that, and instead of marching or picketing, you are home with your family, refusing to follow immoral orders, if there are empty streets, empty banks, empty airports, if no one is out there, if there's no profit, which is their God, if the profit just absolutely drops, if the only reason you go to the bank on the 15th is to pull your money out, you're helping us. And when enough of us get the concept we are employees, but the company only runs when we show up, if we want to crash this corporation, if we want to crash this system, because we cannot solve it from within. So why put more effort trying to do that and listening to lying sack politicians when it's pretty judgmental there, sorry.
Oh, well, you're just calling it as it is. That's an observational position, not judgmental. I mean, you're just calling a spade, and that's what people got to stop worrying about. You're not judging someone. What you're doing is observing their actions. They've already judged themselves. If they're acting like, bottom-feeding scumbags that are harming children, then that's what they are, because that's what they've done to show themselves. So, no, there's never any judgment here. Just call it for what it is. And if they weren't raping children, then they'd have a leg to stand on. Other than that, sorry, they're scum.
There you go. Well, and that's why, let's start taking our world back locally. Folks, if you're prepared, and all of a sudden, let's say 1/15th, for some reason, the awareness, that aha moment happens to millions of us, and we catch that Occupy spirit, the true spirit behind it, not the convoluted George Soros sold out, but if we really understand that instead of occupying somewhere else, why don't we occupy our hearts and our homes and let the rest go to hell, because that's where it belongs, and we're in hell when we're participating. If we pull out, imagine, what kind of power would we have with no one shopping or sending their children to school, all of a sudden staying home and say, I refuse to work until an immediate ceasefire is declared and all troops are sent home to their countries to help rebuild. I refuse to work as long as Obama is able to justify drones. I refuse to work until geoengineering stops. And you know what, folks? I've got my food, my water, my children here, my protection gear. I'm actually going to stop and enjoy my life because I hate my damn job anyway. I understand I've been sold out. And when enough of us get that point, when enough of us fully understand it, we will be free. And actually, what I'd like to do, if it's okay, what I really consider myself as a musical messenger. I would much rather be singing songs than anything else. And there's a song now I feel kind of compelled to share, because it's my anthem, and it's my belief that this will happen. Are you ready?
It definitely hit me. I'm a musician, so.
I never learned to play anything because I was too busy wanting to sing and trying to accompany myself. It didn't work because I could only get out 2 or 3 words before I screwed up the chords and I'd have to start over. But, all right. I will be a source of certainty within the sea of confusion. I'll stand tall. The waves won't make me fall. I've seen through it all. It's an illusion. We were all meant to be living life abundantly, exploring all our majesty. And when enough of us know it, we are free. We are free, and we are.
Well done, Karen. Beautiful. Yeah, I'll sit on a guitar with you anytime. So, yeah, nice progression. Well, we got about 2 minutes till the top of the hour here. I want to say thank you so much, Karen, for bringing the message, and we'll definitely get you back on a regular basis, because we need to pull together, and that's what we're doing. That's what Synchronicity is all about. That's what you're doing is all about, and it's bringing everyone together. Yeah, we may have our differences, but we have the same goal, and that's all we got to focus on. We got to focus on the prize, and the prize is love, freedom, and getting rid of this tyranny and ending all the darkness in this world today. So thank you so much for coming on board tonight. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you,
I want to
Tom.
encourage. Thank you, Tony. I didn't hear much from you tonight. I want to encourage folks, though, to go to UnitedWeStrike.com. It's going to start actually at 6 a.m. Pacific Time, 9 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. GMT in German for 2 hours. Then we go to English for Wake News. Then we go to Scotland and see what Neil is up to with a Sovereign Independent. We're going to hear from Bert, who has a new book, Arms Not Firearms, on Kindle. It's only $3.50, folks. It's worth taking up. We're going to hear from Michael Bodnarik. Then we also have Matt Navarro, Dr. Lorraine Hurley. Michael Shaw is going to join us with a woman who is his guest who has had her child taken, and it's part of Agenda 21. That's something yet we forgot to connect. Agenda 21 and Taking the Children works together. We're going to hear from Gary Hendershot with Alternative Energy. Deborah Tavares is going to come on with lots of information. David Frank with Taking Our Community Back. Dinah Everett Snyder. Vicki Barker, Dean Lloyd Amrosen, Larkin, Texas, Phil Restino, Dr. Rima LeBeau, Michael Rivero, Charlie Grath, Vinnie Eastwood. And actually, hopefully, both of you, I know we talked about working together. We're down to the wire, so possibly you can join us at the end for a roundtable, or we can work out an earlier time for your UK listeners.
Whatever you need, Karen. Whatever you need.
Got to get in touch with me really quickly in that other room that you're in to decide when. But I really enjoyed being here, and I enjoy your hearts, and thank you for having me. Thank you for listening, and folks, please support us, because we're all about supporting each other in spite of our weaknesses and our frailties. You know, let's let the divine Creator decide and just show up and do the best we can.
That's all we can do, hon. But again, thank you so much, and we'll be dialing in with you, and we'll get together with you and see what we can offer to the roundtable. Okay.
All right, perfect. And also the chat room is going to be used. We've got the schedule underneath the chat room, so we'll be able to offer folks the opportunity to ask questions there.
Okay. Well, again, thanks, Karen, and we'll definitely get you back. We're going to be doing a quick jingle here, and then we're bringing Elliot Bernstein on. I would highly recommend. I mean, you can sit in this if you want, Karen. Just mute out or dial it up. It's up to you. But we're going to just do a quick jingle here for Critical Mass, and then we're going to have Elliot Bernstein on. Cool?
Cool. I think I will mute. I'll pull out my headset and feed my husband, kick up my heels, try and finish this, and chill a little bit. Thank you very much.
All right, Karen. Thank you. Here we go. Critical Mass.
Chemtrails, child, animal, and planet abuse, geoengineering, alternative energy, disclosure, prison planets, Agenda 21, drones, biometrics. This is CMR, Critical Mass Radio, leading the way to stopping the control with proactive hosts, shows and solutions, and informative groundbreaking guests. Critical Mass Radio, the People's Station. Now, it's our turn.
Okay, and we're back. All right, Elliot, are you there?
I am here.
Excellent. Great to hear your voice. Yeah, you got a bit of an echo going on, so I'm not sure if you have a headset or not.
No, I don't.
Okay, you might want to check your volume because we're getting a lot of echo feedback. Tony, take the floor, my friend.
Yeah, hi, Elliot.
Hi.
Good to have you with us, mate. Good to have you with us. Well, there's a lot of a huge story to go into with what you've gone through and lots more information. I just briefly, I think because there's a bit of an echo situation there, what I wanted to do is just explain briefly. Elliot's an inventor and he's come up with some serious information where all of you are actually using it in many different aspects of the home around you, the visual equipment that you're using, the computers, the TVs, Hubble Space Telescope, and many, many more. But one of the kickers in this particular story is basically the technology has been stolen from Elliot since he designed it, and it's been implemented worldwide. So this is quite a big story, and as always, there's nobody better to actually give us a brief on what the information is than the person who's been subjected to it himself. So, everybody, please meet Elliot Bernstein. And Elliot, if you can give us some background, that'd be great.
Well, first, Tony, thanks for inviting me on your program. I truly appreciate it. And it's great to see sources like this opening up the communication channels between people to express stories such as mine and make people aware to what is going on in our government that is so wrong that it's affecting citizens worldwide. And obviously, unless we make the changes necessary by rebooting the governments of the world that are corrupted against the peoples, it's not just me that's rights are being violated, it's people from all walks of life. And for years I thought my technology that was stolen was a violation of my rights and property rights. But, you know, when I hear about Manning and the torture he's going through and people in Guantanamo with no habeas corpus rights or any rights for that matter, you know, my technology and the billions or trillions of dollars that it should be generating to me become of far less concern when people are being tortured and murdered for their properties, or they're trying to expose government corruptions and really pull the wall down here in the U.S. that's been erected by our government against the people. And so my story starts out in 1998 with significant inventions in digital imaging and video scaling. And I filed U.S. patents and foreign patents. And the next thing you know, information surfaced that said my patent attorney was putting patents in his own name, of which we later learned after meeting me he became more inventive than Edison, filing almost 90 patents in his name. And once...
Meaning basically he was taking all your IP and filing it under his own, yeah.
Well, and it gets worse, meaning these attorneys didn't stop there. Once he was discovered doing that, they replaced him, my other attorneys, Proskauer Rose, who started all this patent theft. I replaced them with Foley and Lardner, you know, again, a leading U.S. patent firm. So, you know, I was out paying the top dollar to get my patents protected, playing by all the rules, you know, definitely hiring the best counsels in the world, supposedly. And so, you know, Foley came in to fix the mistakes of the first guy and correct the problems he had created. And instead they go and put patents in, you know, the president of the company, Brian Utley, a former IBM guy here in the Boca Raton T-Rex Park facility. And the other law firm starts putting patents in his name. And we're, you know, what we find out is that these patent attorneys and the attorneys that were brought to my company had just been caught stealing technologies from a billionaire, Monty Friedkin, here in Florida, and tried to rip off his intellectual properties for lawnmower equipment, the lawnmower grass cutting equipment. And he had to take a several million-dollar loss, shut the company down, and fire these guys. Well, you know, one of the guys was Bill Dick of Foley and Lardner, who was the patent counsel for IBM's Far Eastern patent pool scheme. And then they worked with this guy in Proskauer Rose, Chris Wheeler. And so the three of them had tried to heist Friedkin, and then they came to my technologies right after that. Of course, they didn't tell me that they had just been fired and, you know, and chastised by Friedkin for attempting to rip off his patents. They came saying they had done his company great service and it had gone on to be a leading golf grass mowing equipment company, which was wholly a lie. And it appears that there might be a very old pattern in practice of ripping off inventors and even murdering them, including, artists and performers. We've seen a rash of artists and performers that, their attorneys get around them. The next thing you know, they're all doped up. The next thing you know, they're out of their mind. And the next thing you know, they're dead. And then, there's the fight for the royalties where the attorneys either way are making money, whether it's coming to them directly or through fees through their companies. So from Michael Jackson, Whitney, you could go down a laundry list of this. And, I even deal with a guy whose brother wrote the song Jingle Bell Rocks. Billy Garland, his brother Hank Garland, wrote the tune. And his lawyers ripped him off years ago, a song worth billions of dollars. And so, they've been getting braver and braver and creating patent pools, which are actually anti-competitive, monopolistic forms of pooling of intellectual property, which historically the U.S. Department of Justice has broken them up. The Singer Sewing, the RCA, there's been allegations of murdering inventors in those patent pooling schemes. And, look, their biggest crime in the world isn't robbing a bank of a lot of money, because you could rob a bank of a lot of money and maybe get off with a few million. But if you steal a technology like mine, you can make trillions. And, so then it becomes obvious, that it would be best for those thieves to murder the people who they're stealing, billions or trillions from. And in fact, if we go back to history with as I was talking to you, Tony, with Tesla, we're finding evidence that Tesla was murdered so his inventions could be stole off by the Nazis and the U.S., to be quite honest. And that, there were people with competing interests like the oilmen, and Tesla had discovered free energy from thin air, and, they had to suppress it or else they couldn't charge everyone for this monopoly game we've started to live in of corruption, actually, where the banker owns the whole board and everything in it, and you just move around. But what I discovered and what happened was, when I discovered the attorneys, and that wasn't just me, Warner Brothers discovered there was, fraud going on, etc. When we busted these big and powerful law firms, Proskauer being a very big Democratic firm in New York, and Foley and Lardner having the RNC chief counsel, Michael Grebbe, running the law firm, these guys were steeped politically, and, once we caught them and filed complaints federally and state against them, it was a life or death situation for them. They had to hold off the complaints and there's tons of evidence, so much evidence, it takes you a few minutes to go through it, and you obviously see that the patents are in their names and stuff. And so it doesn't take a rocket scientist or anything. But so they knew they had to get me stopped at every level, in the courts, in the prosecutorial offices, etc. And it's our allegations that to do that, they plotted a coup on the United States government. And Grebbe, as I said, was the RNC chief counsel at the time, and it's presumed that he had since he was the largest backer of George W. Bush, and also the largest backer of his former employee, Barack Obama, at the time, back in the Bush v. Gore election, it's our allegation that he seized the election by election fraud, and then the Supreme Court, which has been stacked, voted in a 5-4 decision to elect George Bush as our decider dictator. And since that point, our country has slipped into a tyrannous coup of individuals. Grebbe got on the phone, called all the political scumbags, I'll call them, for lack of a better term or more fitting term, like Rumsfeld, like Cheney, 10-time loser scumbags who had failed, their biggest claim to fame was Nixon, basically, and the murder of JFK and all those bad things that occurred back then.
Brzezinski, yep.
And well, Brzezinski is, it should be noticed if we fast forward that Grebbe also was the former employer of Barack Obama, and which makes no sense why Obama, a Democrat, would be at an all-Republican firm, Hopkins and Sutter, which was acquired by Foley and Lardner in the 2000-2001 area. Right as our cases were starting to elevate in federal agencies. And so Grebbe had his man in either the Republican or Democratic side that he could play. And once they took over the presidency, they began to take over the courts in New York where I had filed complaints, and Florida. And the fox was in the hen house. And, I tried to send out the warning to the sheep, but it takes a long time to wake up a population to what's really going on. And in that amount of time, you saw Alberto Gonzales try to politicize the Justice Department, throw out, everybody who was investigating the election fraud of Bush v. Gore, everybody who was investigating IVUIT, Enron, which, of course, my technologies are the real story behind the collapse of Enron, since it was really bankrupted by its subsidiary Enron Broadband, which was where they were trying to steal off my technologies to when they got caught.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they had already booked revenue, assuming they had stolen the holy grail multi-billion-dollar technologies. And when they got caught, obviously they didn't have the technologies to pull off a full-screen, full-frame-rate digital download of movies worldwide, and they went out of business. And our accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, was also their accounting firm. And Arthur Andersen, when they were hired by our investor, Crossbow Ventures, they came back after doing just a routine audit and said, they saw all kinds of frauds and companies named identically, and they started asking questions. So right as they started asking those questions, they were taken out with Enron in the Enron scandal. And then the Bush Energy Commission was formed where, they started raising your food, oil, gas prices, etc. Then they started to, take over various branches of the government. And we have been in a downward spiral ever since, in a banana republic where our votes don't count, our voices don't count, our representative population is nothing more than criminals. They have robbed the people of the world. They have sold them a bunch of shit products that were designed to rig markets and cause economic warfare upon countries and people of the world, which, of course, economic warfare is a war crime and a crime against the eugenics treaties. It's a crime of eugenics because, as we're seeing in Greece, a lot of little old ladies are jumping out the window as they lost their pensions, have to come out of retirement, have no health care, and we're finding that same pattern here in the United States, although it's not being publicized as much, as the middle class was wholly almost wiped out. And so what we have got is a tyrannous coup on the governments of the world. These people brought in friends around the world. They had billions and billions of dollars from my technology. For example, this Skype video wouldn't be possible without me. YouTube wouldn't be possible without me. So they got friends all over the world to help them roll out their stolen technologies, and at the same time that they were making these monies, buy off any politicians they needed to, keep corrupting the government. And now what you have is a government run and operated by criminals. And just look at Wall Street, not a single arrest. Not Eric Holder standing there opening the door for criminals to loot your bank accounts, your 401, rip off 50% of your home value, and maybe still investigating Bernie Madoff for a few dollars. But while these guys ripped off trillions in TARP funds, in through derivatives, through playing rigged markets, and laughing in your face while they stuff their faces full of trillions of dollars at the expense of everybody in the world, well, now we live in a lawless society, and it's soon going to be the Wild West here in the U.S., and, that's why they're trying to take away the guns of the citizens of the United States, because obviously they know that soon people will want their heads for their crimes when they can't get justice through the courts or the prosecutorial offices.
Well, this is the point, exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. I think the bubble's bursting finally.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, isn't this fun? You always know we're getting shit done, right? So I'm getting Tony and Ellie back in. They just hacked my Skype. So anyway, yeah. So hopefully we're back in the air. I'll check in the chat room there. Just trying to get stuff done here. Yeah. Okay, we're back. All right. Thanks, Sir Laura. Much appreciated. Just waiting to get Tony and Elliot back on the call here. I did drag them both into this call, so let me do it again and make sure there's Tony, and make sure we got Elliot. There's Elliot. You always know when we're hitting the nail on the head, boys and girls, because they don't normally. Well, I haven't been doing much lately, but I know Elliot's got some powerful information. Have I got both you, Tony and Elliot, back on the line yet?
It appears so. You certainly have me, and now we have Elliot. Yeah, excellent.
Okay, just a heads up, Elliot. We get hacked a lot, all right? Especially when we're divulging things of this level. So, you know the game, so let's play.
Well, in fact, that's a great starting point for this next section of what's going on. Basically, I took these guys to court and the disciplinary departments, and I was stopped everywhere I went by conflicted parties who, in the bars I filed complaints, and then the people from the law firms I complained about were handling the complaints for the bar. And we busted them, and they got ordered for investigations that got derailed. And we elevated, and it went all the way to the top. And then there was a whistleblower named Christine C. Anderson, and she's one of my heroes. She stepped forward to expose corruption in the New York Supreme Court, the disciplinary departments, which are responsible for the oversights of attorneys, that are being disciplined. And she came forward stating that they were whitewashing complaints for U.S. attorneys, DAs, ADAs, and favored lawyers and law firms, which just about the system of law had corrupted upon itself. And these are the people who are supposed to be regulating the attorneys on Wall Street. Voila, why nobody's been prosecuted on Wall Street. And so if you look at Christine C. Anderson's riveting whistleblowing case before Judge Sheriff Shinlin in the U.S. District Court, Southern District of New York, you'd be fascinated to see that the entire legal system, especially at the top, especially where it's most critical to have regulation and discipline, the chief counsel was holding orgies in the character and fitness for a lawyer building. You can't make this stuff up. They beat up Christine Anderson, who's like a 60-year-old female New York Supreme Court attorney disciplinary expert, to the point where she was afraid to leave her office, not because of the people outside, but because of the people inside. And you imagine that. Her case involves another whistleblower, Nicole Corrado, who just filed suit as well in a different district. I can't recall which at the moment. but again, of sexual harassment inside the ethics department of the New York Supreme Court from the top people in those departments. Now, Anderson's claim that this whitewashing was going on between the attorneys in a good old boy kind of scenario also involves case file destruction, document and evidence destruction, and then from the article that Tony called me about that I circulated this week, written by Exposed Corrupt Courts, a blog out of New York, and a gentleman, Frank Brady, also known as Kevin McCowan, what we find is another whistleblower coming out who's saying that the Supreme Court of New York was hiring this guy and his firm to target Anderson and 125 other cases, of which I am allegedly one of, where they, to obstruct justice, put illegal wiretaps in her home, put 24/7 surveillance, and I'm not sure what state funds they were using for all this. They were meeting in secret meeting places with the intent to obstruct justice and suppress any whistleblowers against them. And it's obvious now that, it's dangerous to be a whistleblower, not from the people you're blowing the whistle on, but from your own government. And it just all shows that the whole system has been cooed.
Oh, absolutely, Elliot. I just want to jump in here real quick. I want to keep you going, though. This is amazing. I love it. Just to back you up on that, I mean, I had the Guelph City Police Force along with the Guelph provincial court, the provincial courts, Newmarket courts, the city mayor, the newspaper, the chief of police. Every one of these guys, I exposed the Bank of Montreal for bank fraud, and we'll get into that another time. But the absolute truth is what you're saying is that the entire court system is corrupt. It is based on fraud. It is done through birth certificate and many more details that I need to hook you up with a couple of people that can really help you out because there is no law in the legal world.
Not just the courts, but the prosecutorial.
Oh yeah, all of it. It's all criminal. They're all war criminals.
Branches, the press, the whole damn thing is been co-opted.
Absolutely.
To a bunch of criminals. It's a criminal RICO cartel.
There's the magic word, RICO. Absolutely, And you see, the thing is, these guys feel so immune to their own laws because all the backroom deals that go on with the QSIP numbers and what have you. They're just cashing on our birth bonds. But, I mean, this rabbit hole goes far deeper than most people realize. People listening to this show absolutely know exactly what's going on. But definitely, Elliot, there are some people I can hook you up with that can help you out. And let's have some fun. Let's play.
Well, what's beautiful is we're on the cusp of a phenomenal moment in history where evil is exposed, where we've caught them in the RICO crimes, where we see the market rigging, the antitrust, monopolistic, anti-competitive marketplaces they've set up through all kinds of violations of Sherman Clayton and every other antitrust rule. We're learning about how they suppress clean energies to rape us on oil and make us, subservient to this whatever matrix illusion of, the need for their power sources and the crimes they've done against the people. And that is all being exposed worldwide, and it is out. The cat is out of the bag. People know what's up. They know their home values were ripped off, and they have no ability to get anybody in the government to help them. And so we are at a moment to actually clean up what I deem to be approximately 50 years, and I know a lot of people go way back in even thousands, but 50 where I can see where our country has been slowly being cooed by fascist minds and elitist minds. And it is 1% truly against 99, and they're hoping that their smoke screen that they propagate to you through their nonsense diarrhea stream media will hold up. And to be quite honest, I think they're going to be the last ones believing in their delusions of grandeur as the people storm the castles. And, we're starting to show up in mass. They're trying to pull out guns. They're trying to suppress the people. They're building camps to kill people. They're poisoning people as fast as they can. And the people need to unite quickly and storm the castle and demand justice. And if the people in charge of justice don't give it to you, hang their asses too. I mean, Wild West way. The judge is corrupt in the town and he's against the people. Go hang the son of a bitch. His neck breaks just like yours.
Yep.
and then after you break his neck, turn him upside down and clean his pockets of all the money he stole from the people, and the town will go back to normal.
I see visions of Mussolini here. Yeah.
Well, that's what Bush is.
Exactly.
Bush is a dictator. Obama is a dictator. You're living in a fascist regime.
Absolutely.
And the waking giant is awakening.
Oh, yes, it is. And the military is awake to what's going on and how they've been co-opted. And they know all this, and they are scared. And for the first time, you can't even call their secret societies or anything anymore because it's not a secret. Most people today know what the Illuminati is, know what Freemasons are, know what Skull and Bones is, know how they've been rigging the system against them, know what the the not so federal, and the unfederal reserve is, and how they're being taken. And it's like this. You remember when we used to play Monopoly, and there'd always be some kid who started pocketing the money from the bank, and then he started accumulating property by just stealing them out of the pile instead of going around the board. And you didn't see it because he was the banker at the time and you trusted him as your friend. But then he went crazy and he owned all the property and all the money and even free parking you couldn't get. And at that point, as you started going around the board mindlessly while he abused you and, charged you triple houses and blah, and you became bored with the game, you finally got sick of him too, turned the board upside down and beat him up. And then you and the rest of the guys got back together, started a fresh new game, and, depending on what an asshole was, it was dependent on if he was coming back to play with us again. And that is what we need here, to turn the Monopoly board upside down, to take back our countries from this tyrannous group, to fry them, and RICO and recover the stolen $100 trillion or more from world markets. And believe me, the country will be fine the next afternoon. In fact, millions of people will be doing better. But it has to be done by taking out a coup. And you have, it is now up to the people, to their Second Amendment rights, to form militia if necessary when the government has stopped working, to grab George Bush and try him in a people's court, or to set up trials with qualified people and try him in absentia as they did in Kuala Lumpur, and then put out a citizen's arrest for him. You can arrest George Bush today in most states on a citizen's arrest because he committed felony war crimes. And then you just take him off to the nearest sheriff, and if he won't process him, take him down to a basement, have 12 guys try him and kill him. And that's it. That's how it's got to happen. There's no if, and, or but around this, because if you don't do that, they will continue to abuse you, steal your monies, deny you justice, deny your rights, and soon you'll be getting on a bus or a train and they'll be telling you there's warm cookies in a shower on the other side of the camp fence.
What I would say is they've built lots of nice little FEMA camps where they'd all fit in rather nicely, and because there's the same type of ilk, they'd all get on quite well, I just said.
And they're even stocking those FEMA camps with, high-grade processing guillotines. Out in Atlanta, they've bought a bunch of, factory farming guillotines for human beings with large coffins and, So, and by the way, like we were talking, Tony, the guy who architected the camps for Hitler was Robenheimer, which is Karl Rove's family. Zbigniew Brzezinski, Barack Obama's brains, Rockefeller's bitch, a Republican. So I don't know why he's Barack Obama's brain if Obama's a Democrat, which according to his voting record and drone strikes and all this other crap, he looks about as Democrat as a Republican. So like Hillary Clinton, who was formerly the young Republican head, who only converted to democracy when Rockefeller wanted her to switch after the Nixon debacle. And, we've brought these Nazi fascist type people to their knees before in this country. And I'm not sure if it was you, Tony, who said, that we are forming to bring down this fascist regime. But, it's going to be the people, and the people need to stop buying into their whole corrupt system and their whole corrupt television and their whole corrupt politics. Because really your vote didn't count in this election. If it's really 99% against 1%, then most people probably voted for Ron Paul.
Mm. Well, this is the point. This is what we really need to get our heads around. Really. It's all been a massive con. And, the fact of the matter is we've got to raise the consciousness of the people, i.e. / the masses, to the point where they go, okay, I get it. And when they get it, then they'll be informed about it. They'll understand what's happened and how it's happened. And at that particular point, then when they understand what's wrong, they'll know what to fix. And the biggest emphasis at the moment is education. Education, give people an education so they can understand what's happened, and then we'll be conscious of it and deal with it, and that's the point.
Well, I think their consciousness is being raised, but it takes time. So you're seeing a lot of lawsuits flood into the courts for robo-signed foreclosures, for robo-signed is just another term for forged documents in a bank fraud, which me and you would serve 15 to 20 on. These guys, they call it robo-signing, and nobody's been charged. Not exactly sure how that works. But what's happening is they're just in the first phase of discovering the corruption. So, my house was stolen by all this illegal transaction. Now I'm going to go assert my rights in the courts. Now I'm going to call the police and the DA and the Attorney General. And then they're going to go through this process I've been through where you get bounced around. Everybody's going to do something. They never do anything. They minnow drag you along the ocean from one end to the other in a cesspool of conflicts and violations of law and procedural rights. And so they violate all your rights for the next 4 or 5 years while you bang your head on the court trying to get justice. And you're walking into a judge who just rubber stamps everything you send in dismissed. The attorneys bankrupt you by bleeding you out of legal fees. And then at the 1 year, well, they're not attorneys. And let me not call them attorneys or judges. In my view, they're criminals who got law degrees or are sitting in a position of power when they're really criminals, and the reason they got those degrees is to join a criminal organization in defeating law by having a law degree.
Exactly. Well, that's the point. That's why they're called attorneys, because they turn you over, basically. Again. Well, this is the point. It's in the language, which is where Kate comes in with etymology. We dissect all of this. We were talking about how the letters break down, how the words break down, all the different meanings of the words. And if you actually look at the words, you can see it like lie sense, passport and all this sort of stuff. It's not that difficult when you start looking, but you need to start looking. They're all part of the same team, Elliot. That's basically where we're at. We're up it without a paddle, so we're going to need to start education to try and steer the boat in a different way from this point on.
Well, and I think we're doing a good job. I think people marching in Occupy movements, I think that people writing blogs and getting stories out like Lawless America, like Exposed Corrupt Courts, like Crystal Cox, who's an investigative blogger who has taken on many of my rivals to expose the story at great personal risk to herself. And, you know, they've sued her for $2.5 million in one of the most bogus and offensive First Amendment violations of law ever done by a judge. She's actually, Eugene Volokh of UCLA has taken her case because it's that serious. But, you know, they're suing her in another court, and they're harassing me in that court. And, you know, it's nonstop trying to bring them down. And it takes a long, you know, I'll give you a story that I think will help you see how I see it a little bit. I went to the FBI, and they brought in a specialist who was a specialist in law firm crimes. And I called him Doogie Howser because he looked 16 years old. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys brought my son in here to take on my enemies. What are you, nuts? You know, if it's me and him against these monster law firms, we're dead. But I let him talk, and he actually showed me what a genius he was. And he started out the conversation, and he had reviewed my files, and he said, Elliot, first, you need to know that when law firms corrupt, there's no more heinous crime in the entire code, because anything can happen at that point. War crimes, all kinds of stuff can happen if law firms are corrupting government. And because a lawyer can go in and out of government roles at will, or political roles at will, they can subvert offices whenever people are against them. And he said, and what you brought to me is tantamount to treason on the United States. You're making allegations that Supreme Court justices, chief justices were murdered, that their, overthrow of the government, election rigging, these are all treasonous crimes. So he said, starting today, assuming that I was to do an investigation on your stuff, don't expect me to hand out an indictment for 10 to 15 years. Because I'm going to need a field force the size of China to bring down this kind of corruption. I'm going to need money to run investigations this big and really bring justice to your case. And you know what? I thought about it for a minute, and I said, well, if somebody walked into my office today and handed me a world of shit like this, and I had to go through thousands and thousands of documents and all this kind of nonsense, and it was involving presidential overthrows and whatnot, to validate all that, and make sure Elliot wasn't crazy or, just saying these things, but that there was true evidence, and then set these guys up, put wiretaps on, get a field force. I thought to myself, I'd be lucky to do it in 25 years. And I really mean that. And that would be putting my entire life effort into it. So we're now in the 10th year after that meeting, I believe. And you see signs of it. You see the corruption starting to break. You see them exposed. Listen, if they were this great, they wouldn't be exposed. George Bush would be being called a war criminal. He wouldn't be afraid to travel in most countries or most states. Notice he hasn't stumped for anybody since leaving office. I've seen Cheney, Rummy, or all the boys from the Guantanamo torture team anywhere. because they're afraid to leave their homes because people will make citizens arrests on them and have tried. I know that the lady, Pink Lady, or Code Pink, they tried to arrest, I believe, Rumsfeld or Cheney, or one of them, at a public speech they were giving, and went up on stage with handcuffs to arrest him. That's what the people need to be doing. They need to show up at Congress and go crazy and demand their money and rights back and demand justice, or else I am telling you the injustice will go on forever. Now, we can hope for our government to form a Justice League with a lot of money against these guys, or we can start helping our government by putting pressure on our government in every way, shape, and form. And that takes a few years. So, the Occupy guys got their feet wet, and what happened? All of a sudden, they're being tear gassed, they're being videotaped, they have facial recognition. The New York City offices are being polluted with corporations that are targeting these people who are against the banks, etc., using public funds to do these private hunts. And, but it's getting exposed. And at every step, they're being ousted on this stuff. And this is a historical shift because these guys have been operating crimes like the savings and loan debacle virtually untouched without many people knowing who was behind the architect. And their cover stories through the media were accepted blindly by a population that grew up on television and believed that, there was any reality in a non-reality device, which is hard to believe, but true how effective it's been used to suppress the generations since its invention. And so we need to give, people call these people sheeple, and I call them people who are just waking up. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. The guy who said, we're waking the sleeping giant. Well, it takes a few years to mount a revolution and get all the people behind it so that when we storm the castle, there's a lot of people hanging on trees outside the castle lawn, and it only takes a few minutes, and then everything in this country and the world will have a monumental shift overnight. The only thing that stands in our way is our failure to unite and act. And I know they're suppressing you with fluorides and all kinds of drugs, and they're doping up children who are rebels so there's no rebellion. And I know all that, but I think the people know that if they all agree to meet in Washington on January 1st next year and put 20 million people in the streets of Washington demanding their rights, you'll shut down government. These guys will be afraid to come out of their offices.
The only thing that I would want to comment on that is I don't think we've got time to wait till next year.
Okay, yeah, I'd do it tomorrow.
Exactly.
Well, I just want to jump in for a sec here, and this is for everyone listening, especially Americans. You guys are approaching your first shot fired at Lexington moment, and it's coming. I mean, the cops are already killing each other. You got that one ex-LAPD that was disgruntled at being fired from the LAPD, and this is exactly what you're going to get when the dogs start getting mistreated. They'll turn on each other, and that's exactly what's going to be happening. It will be dog eat dog, and that Lexington moment is coming very quickly.
And you guys over in England need a Lexington moment too.
Yeah, again, Guy Fawkes was the last one, I believe, according to his story. But that's another issue. Yeah, there's a lot of other things there's tons of other things that can be mentioned, but one of the main things that's keeping people down.
Here, you want to get
fluoride.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Apart from the fluoride, is the HAARP energies. And if people don't understand what the High Altitude Aurora Research Program is, they need to learn because it's affecting the brainwaves, basically. And that's above television and lots of the other things. But carry on, Elliot.
Hello?
Yeah, carry on, Elliot.
Well, they can harp our asses, they can do whatever they want, but if you want, for example, several 100 million Americans to march on Washington, simply notify Americans that you're marching on Washington to demand the 50% loss in your home value that was due to market rigging back from the people who stole the money through criminal acts, and demand that Eric Holder and the Justice Department start arresting bankers and whatnot, or we're going to grab him and try him for his failure to perform his duties to the public. And now when 100 million people know that they could get back half their home value by seizing the bank, not just arresting the banker, but seizing, like we did Prescott Bush's bank for trading with the enemy, seize Bank of America and all their assets. Now people will show up where they see money at the end of the tunnel, which is rightfully theirs, which has been converted by these crimes to other people. You will have a revolution in a minute, and you will have 100 million people demanding their money back in Washington. Now, the government will have to start shooting us, like Kent State, and they got about 4 there before they had major world revolution against them, that they went running on Vietnam and stuff. But imagine if they start killing, 1 million Americans, you're going to turn this country upside down on them overnight, and they're going to be torn to smithereens, and that's what needs to happen. We need to get out there and put our lives on the line to being shot and killed and harped and brain fucked by the government, and die for our country and our freedoms. Because if we don't do it now, they will start using those things, and you will have no rights, no guns, and just a bus ticket to a FEMA camp.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to say you're not going to get an argument out of me on that. Again, the people, this tsunami is ready to give out at any time now. Lots of feedback there, Elliot.
Feedback, Elliot.
Mute up quickly. Thanks. Yeah, there's a tsunami coming at them, and a lot of us have been feeling the standing wave pressure for a long time, especially over the last couple of months. And these guys are pushing all the wrong buttons, and they are in a panic. They are terrified, and rightly so, given the crimes against humanity. Every child, man, woman, and child that has been killed in their illegal wars is on their shoulders. That's theirs to wear. And also, I do like to throw this in all the time. Those that support this system are part and parcel of it. So this is where we have to take our lives back. Just got word today, Anonymous is going all out cyber war, and they've already hacked into the Fed Reserve and the Justice Department, and a lot of brilliant minds out there that no one knows where they are, and they can bust into these things and create literal chaos. Because at the end of the day, when this system comes down, it's coming down. All that paper money is going to be worthless anyway, because it was all debt to begin with. So we need to wipe it out, to wipe out the debt. So we got some interesting times ahead.
And so what? We call the money in and we reboot and we start fresh. And these guys lose all their stolen money in offshore accounts, and we tell them, stick it up your ass. And we restart, and we pull back all our manufacturing jobs, and we rebuild this country without these assholes. They go to prison where they belong, and they certainly set themselves up with enough prisons to house themselves. And, it's time not only that the geeks of the world who are operating in secrecy and void are operating in the anonymous groups, but me, you, and every person willing to go show our face in non-fear of a corrupted government and say, bring it on, and whether you're going to tase me or phase me or whatever the hell you're going to do it. Because if you don't, I'm going to put your head in a noose in 5 seconds, and your life is going to be over. End of report.
And this is the point. You've hit the nail right on the head here. Because all of those undecided people that are thinking, oh, well, they're not going to come, I'll just hide in the corner, I'll let people stand up there and get tased or do this or go to end up in Guantanamo. All you people, who do you think is going to be next on the list when they've wiped out the first wave and the second wave and the third wave and the fourth wave? They came for the Catholics. I wasn't a Catholic, so I did nothing. They came for the Protestants. I wasn't a Protestant, so I did nothing. And they came for the Unionists. I wasn't a Unionist, so I did nothing. And pretty soon they were knocking on the door for me. And by that time, there was nobody left to come and help me. It's not very accurate, but it's very true.
That's why we need a Paul Revere, a Moses, somebody to stand up and announce it to the people that I hate to use the term for you English folks, but the redcoats are coming, and mount the citizens. That is what the Second Amendment is for, not for protecting yourself from a robber or shooting a deer, but shooting your local politician when he corrupts. And we need to mount. Now, I am not for violent revolution. I am a pacifist. I'm a vegetarian. I'm, all those good things to the creatures of the earth, even evil ones. But I do believe in restoring justice by hook or crook. And once justice is restored, trying these folks in all of their crimes, whether their name's Obama or Bush or whatever, and no matter who their daddy or grandpa was, trying them in a system where nobody's above the law, and for these crimes, the crime of treason, it's the death penalty. And, as I always say on the end of my post, noose is free at iView at TV, because, I'll pull the switch on guilty parties. And we need to execute these people because they are nothing but a stain and danger to society. I think I mentioned to Tony that, when the Eugenics Society was first formed back in California, and I believe Carnegie hired Joseph Mengele prior to his work at Auschwitz for Hitler to do some studies on eugenics. The eugenics movement, which was called the Breeders Association, was headed by a guy named Alexander Graham Bell. And Graham Bell wanted eugenics because he was trying to breed out the gene for deafness. And that's a good use of that kind of technology. But the other ones, Carnegie, Morgan, all the, fascists, wanted to use it to sterilize populations of what they called undesirables, useless feeders, whatever you want to call them. People who weren't spoiled, rotten elitists from birth. And when Graham Bell caught wind of that, he quit, resigned from the Breeders Association, wrote a letter of resignation whereby he directed them in their new eugenics campaign to start with their own children, who were spoiled, rotten elitists, and he felt that they were the greatest danger and stain on mankind and have been throughout civilization. And we are dealing with the same breed of, spoiled, rotten, industrialist children and grandchildren who are sitting on billions of dollars that they haven't earned a dollar of it, while they feel entitled and hate the people who built their grandfathers' companies and are now stealing their Social Security benefits and all these things, and calling those entitlements versus the real entitlements, which are trust funds.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. This is the point. I mean, as you might have heard there, we've got literally seconds to go, Elliot. We want to get you back on as soon as we can. So we'll go ahead and do that with your permission.
Anytime, and thank you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, and by the way, I'm going to hook you up with Tyler Davenport. He's got a large U.S. listener base, and you need to. I'll get you hooked up with him after the show because he does radio shows all week as well. And the more that we can get your information out, the more empowered the people are going to be. yes, we want a nonviolent revolution. Absolutely. I just posted in the chat room. Nonviolent is one thing, but are you simply going to walk to the guillotine, or are you going to put up a fight? And that's basically where we're at right now. Our backs are to the wall here, and through our own ignorance and willingness to let it happen. But Elliot, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been an absolute treat here on Outside the Box. As soon as possible, I want to get you back, and I'll get you hooked up with some others to be on the air as well. We need to get your story out. So thanks again to Critical Mass Radio and Paul and the crew there, Lisa, everybody, for giving us this platform to speak freely, and we do. So thanks again. Final words here. We're out of time now, but it'll be on the recording. So any final words, guys?
Yeah, absolutely, Elliot. We're out of time now, so it's gone offline and the adverts will have started. So if you want to give your web details and information, etc., and we do have excess time now, but it's not live. So everything that you say from this point on will be recorded and published in the archives.
Well, just viva la revolution.
Yeah.
It's time. We cannot wait. The waiting is over. We now have the evidence. We see that nothing is being done. And, are we going to sit back and take it and watch the end of our countries for the handful of idiots?
Yeah, psychopaths.
Yeah.
We just call them war criminal psychopaths because that's exactly what they are.
Or just call it what it is, the New World Disorder.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
That's right on. But I want you hooked up with Kyler. So I'm gonna. I already passed over your contact to him. So what I'll do here is I'll tell you what. I'll just do it right now. Here I've given you Kyler's Skype. So definitely be in touch with him. He is.
Where did you give that to me?
In your Skype, one-on-one. You'll see it when you click on your name.
Do you remember that text box?
Oh, did we go off? I guess we went off.
So you guys are doing a show how often?
Every night.
Every night.
Well, I wanted to give your readers, but I wanted to read a letter I just sent off to the Inspector General of the Department of Justice tonight.
Okay.
I actually, rather than do it right now, why don't you pencil in a few minutes for tomorrow night, because we have Santo Bonacci and Jordan Maxwell, and we typically have 30 to 50,000 people tuned in.
Okay, so you know what? Tomorrow night, just start off reminding me to read the letter. Okay,
and again, it'd be like Jordan and Santo, but I know that they'll want to hear some of the stuff that you're saying, and it'll go out to a lot of people. So I think that would probably be the best thing, or better yet, here I get Saturday night. Tony and I do a show with Kyler Davenport,
yep.
and we get serious hits on that as well. Probably in the same neighborhood of 50,000+.
I don't care if you get one. That one's enough for me. Jesus, 50,000 is a whole lot of people. And I also do. I could be releasing press releases, and I have over 200,000 contacts worldwide. Professors, lawyers, educators, scientists that I've been creating a database over my life, actually, since I got into computers. And, one of my jobs was basically marketing products to people worldwide. Some of my clients, in fact, are billionaires and multimillionaires. So I've got a very broad and diverse group that if you guys have press releases or go to Free Press Release and launch a press release that, tonight's show is going to have Elliot Bernstein for an hour of blah, 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 I'll send that out to thousands and thousands of people.
Okay, well, perfect. And tell you what, we do a 2-hour show every night. I'm going to talk to Kyler, and we're going to bring, if you can, Saturday night, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard, your same zone as me.
Hold on, I got to schedule that. Hold on.
Okay.
I won't be able to operate if I don't have them.
What I was going to suggest.
Okay, wait. What Saturday night at what time?
7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
7 p.m. my time, right?
Yeah, we're in the same time zone.
Okay, where are you?
About an hour west of Toronto.
Oh, okay. Okay, and so what's the name of the radio show?
It's where Saturday night is where eagles soar. And I tell you, Elliot, it's going to be a dynamite show. Kyler is going to flip. This is the show we've been waiting for.
Okay, good. Good, and I'll tell you, this whole thing in New York is blowing, and it's huge. It's not I just told Tony about the $46 trillion lawsuit that led to the guy at CNBC's 2 children having their throats cut by what was supposed to be the nanny who then cut her throat.
Yeah, her.
Well, that was because he was a CNBC producer who released a story on a $46 trillion lawsuit whereby the Inspector General of the TARP Fund is quoted as saying that 100%. Can you hold on 1 second?
Actually, Elliot, I've got to do a webinar, so tell you what, I'm going to hang up here.
Yep.
Give Tony a call back, or Tony call him back, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting off the air.
I'll get back to you, Elliot, yeah?
I'm on the show.
Okay. So we'll leave it with that, and I'll tag you Saturday. I'll probably touch base with you tomorrow, Elliot. In the meantime, I've got to go do a webinar every Thursday night as well.
Great, and I appreciate it, guys, and I'll be in touch.
Elliot, we're here for you as you are for us. This is it. We got to get it done. We're out of time. Let's move it and get it done.
I'll call you back, Elliot, okay?
Okay, great.
Much love to everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Outside the Box here on Critical Mass Radio, Outside the Box, Wednesday night. We'll talk to you tomorrow night, it's Thursday night. What am I saying? Tomorrow night we have Jordan Maxwell and Santa Bonacci, and maybe a little pop-in by Elliot. And definitely Saturday night, Kyler Davenport with Tony, myself, and Elliot Bernstein. And we're going to have some serious fun. So much love to all, and we'll catch you tomorrow. Good night, all.